Thanks for joining me for this training. So in this first training, as a client success representative, we're going to be talking about understanding our general scope of work. So basically a scope of work for a marketing agency are the items that we perform for a client. And this is very important to understand because it may slightly vary from client to client. But pretty much for what our agency does, it's set. It's pretty much the same thing that we do over and over for the clients. And, so we want to make sure we understand the scope of work for clients because, essentially sometimes clients, we get really friendly with clients. And as a CSR, hopefully you build a good relationship with clients. And sometimes they feel like they can actually ask you for more favors or they can ask you to do extra things for them. And we have to be professional and tactful about kind of saying what's within our scope of work and what's outside of our scope of work. So like when we onboard accounts, there is a scope of work for onboarding accounts. There's a set of things we do when we bring people on that we really don't do after we bring them on because then that part is done. One of those things may involve one of the following actually. So business page setup. So sometimes when we onboard clients, we need to set up their Facebook business page because they don't have one. And we have a standard operating procedure for that. Organization of their assets in Business Manager, which would be the pixel, an ad account, pages, like business pages and Business Manager, maybe business info. And that might be some things you're familiar with in Business Manager and Meta, but if not, we have a training on this as well to go over later in the CSR certification here. So the initial Meta strategy deployment, as far as setting up a strategy for them and putting things in place like a consumer profile, competitive research, targeting strategy in those items is part of our onboarding scope of work. Rarely do we create new strategy like that for clients on an ongoing basis. Usually we just kind of set up those initial strategies when we onboard them. That's part of the scope. Setting up the tracking with the Meta Pixel and applicable conversions API setup is within our scope of work. And sometimes the client has a developer that will do this, or they have a team that will set up their own data tracking. And we like to lean on the client where we can with this, because many times clients have multiple traffic sources other than Facebook ads, which is what we provide. And so they have their own data tracking and data attribution systems. And so we simply kind of hand the ball off to their developer and say, hey, here's the pixel ID. Go ahead and set up your own tracking. But in cases where we're doing everything for the client or we're running all of their paid traffic through Facebook, many times we set up their pixel, and that's a scope of work as well that has an SOP. And on an ongoing basis, we try to maintain that pixel at the meta level to ensure good quality tracking. We also set up the initial ad account and audit to begin media buying actions immediately. So when we bring on an account, when we onboard and we bring on a new client, right away, if that account has experience, like if it's had money spent in it or has ads running currently, we introduce one of our media buyers to that account immediately for an audit so we can take over the buying for the client and start helping them immediately, which is the media buying portion of things was fully within our scope of work. So if you're onboarding an account and it's not a brand new account where they don't have ads launched yet, like we have to ramp up everything for them and then launch the ads, but they already have ads running. They actually maybe even have successful ads running. They're just really busy and they don't want to manage them. We got to plug our media buyer in immediately. So that's why it's important when you look at a new account, if it looks like it's a new client that has ads currently running, you need to introduce the media buyer for that account immediately so they can start helping with it. Doing mock-ups, so creating mock-ups for new ads and then proofing those with the client. And we'll go over proofing a little bit also in this certification. Proofing itself is a process that we go through with the client that can take time and takes good communication as a client success representative. And then we go ahead and launch those ads right after they approve the mock-ups and the proofs. And so creating new strategies and launching those ads is basically the primary goal of onboarding new clients and doing the onboarding process. So another part of our scope of work is providing reporting and tracking. And primarily, we provide reporting to our clients through a tool called Swido, which is an automatic reporting tool. And then another tool where we create a manual monthly analytics report with a combination of running ChatGPT and then having our media buyer review the analytics summary. So we're giving the client a written report that's very detailed, which is an analytics summary once a month. And then we're giving them a more automated key performance indicator report once a week through our automated reporting system. So as far as copywriting goes, we do provide primary text for the Facebook ads, headlines for the Facebook ads, and those pieces of copywriting are fully generated through ChatGPT. And we have a very detailed standard operating procedure for these things that we use when we launch accounts, and that we also use on an ongoing basis as we run ads to test and optimize that copywriting. So we also provide meta advertising, graphic and video design based on our clients' raw collateral. So we do projects sometimes where we'll create raw collateral for the client for what's called UGC, or user generated content. But those are special projects that aren't within our normal scope of work. You'll see they get added on sometimes. For our normal scope of work, the client needs to provide what's called raw collateral, which is basically like video or graphic design where they could use like their smartphone. They could have a media team in their own company, take a lot of pictures and video, and then they're going to share that with us on a cloud-based system. And then our creative team, our graphic designers, our editors, our video editors, they'll go in and work on those things to create Facebook ads, right? And so always encourage the client to upload their swipe file with new collateral. And then as the CSR, the client success representative, it's your job to then get that new collateral into our creative team to process it into an ad, and then get it to the media buyer so we can publish it as a new ad, and then also share it with the client to show them the new ads that we are launching for them so they can see that we are working for them and designing new ads at least on a monthly basis, okay? So that's an operational process that's in our scope of work, is doing regular creative projects and coordinating with the client. Communication with the media buyer to understand what kind of creatives will test well, and then getting that information to the client is also really important. You have to ask the media buyer what creatives are working well, like what ads as far as graphics or videos is working well, and then ask the client, hey, can you get us this kind of raw collateral? And then get that to the creative team, get it processed into an ad, get it to the media buyer, show it to the client to celebrate the success. So the technical media buying that we do is also a big part of our scope of work, making sure that campaigns are structured properly, making sure that we're targeting people properly, and that we're ensuring that there's balance between like what the client wants and what the media buyer recommends we do at a technical level to reach their goals. It's not uncommon. You're going to run into this where clients will make unreasonable or unrealistic requests. They may say, hey, this next month we're going to take our $2,000 ad budget and we want to go ahead and cut that down to $500, but we want to get the same sales or something. So you always want to bounce that kind of stuff off the media buyer and balance that request with what the media buyer says is possible, so that when you you could go to the media buyer and say, hey, this in the same example, the client wants to cut the budget from $2,000 a month in ads to $500, and the media buyer would probably say that's going to hurt the performance because maybe their cost per lead is, let's just say it's $40. So they say, well, we're not really happy with that, so we'll cut it back for a little bit. Say, well, they could increase their cost per lead by cutting the budget to a lot more. They might pay $80 a lead or something. And you go back to the client and tell them, hey, it might double your cost per lead to actually drop the cost. Because sometimes their thinking is, well, if I cut the price, it automatically changes the results and it'll be the same. That's just not how media buying works, right? And it goes the opposite way too. Sometimes the client thinks, oh, we're spending $3,000 a month and we're getting 3 times return on ad spend. Let's ramp it up to $10,000 a month tomorrow. Well, you can't really do that. If you just turn the ad spend up to that amount, many times there's going to be it's going to really hurt the return on ad spend, because it makes the whole system reset and start learning again and optimizing. And so the expectations with the client have to be set properly. You might go back to the media buyer and say, hey, they want to go from a $3,000 budget to a $10,000 a month budget, because the return on ad spend is like 3 times for this e-commerce client. Well, the media buyer might say, sure, we can do that, but it's going to take like 2 weeks. And you got to go back to the client and say, to maintain that 3 times ROAS, it's going to take us about a week to 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, to get it up to $10,000 a month. So we need to kind of move it up in steps, right? So it's important that, when it comes to the technical side of things, you're really communicating with the media buyer, and you're really good at communicating with them, so you can bounce questions off of them and get back to the client and make recommendations and that sort of thing. And all you're going to tell the client, we'll go over this in training too, as far as how you communicate with clients. All you're going to tell the client is, hey, let me get with the team. That sounds like it's going to include some technical work, so let me get with the team and see what that entails. I'll get back to you soon, within 24 hours or by the end of the day or something. You try to give a timeline for when you're going to get back to them. So optimizing creatives and optimizing copywriting and that sort of thing. When clients, what you might run into sometimes with scope of work is that clients complain about the context of their advertising or their ads, and they may say, hey, that ad or the copywriting in that ad, I decided I don't like how it looks, and I decided I don't like what that says. And what you want to do, if they say, well, so go ahead and just turn off that ad. I just want to turn off that ad. Or another thing that's very common that can happen is they'll say, somebody left a bad comment on that ad because it's social media advertising. And they said they didn't think that it was a good picture or something like that. But what you want to do is go to the media buyer and say, hey, the client wants to turn off this ad. But again, you have to balance this, so then get the media buyer's feedback before you do. You say, this is what the client wants, but is it good to do technically speaking? That's what you say to the media buyer. This is what the client wants, but is this technically a good thing to do? If not, why? So I can go tell the client and see what they want to do further. And if they really want to go against our advice, then you let the client know, okay, hey, I'm willing to, I'll do that for you, no problem. You just need to understand that this goes against our best practices, okay? And that's how you phrase it. I can definitely accommodate this for you, but it goes against our best practices. If the advice you get from the media buyer about making changes to an ad goes against what the client wants, you got to let them know. Say, hey, we'll totally accommodate that, but just so you know, it goes against our best practices. Because a lot of times, what might happen with the comment situation is there's a bad comment on an ad, and the client gets upset because they feel like they're getting negative feedback. And you go to the media buyer and you say, hey, the client doesn't like this ad because there's negative comments on it. And the media buyer says, okay, but that ad accounts for 90% of the sales that are coming in. Like, that ad maybe has brought in like $50,000 in revenue for the client over a period of like 2 months or something. So we can shut it down if they're upset about the comment, but that might kill 90% of the revenue coming in from their advertising. I wouldn't recommend it. You would go back to the client and say that same thing. You'd say, hey, we can definitely, you confirm with the client, I can definitely turn it off for you. However, that ad makes up 90% of your revenue, and it brought in $50,000 in the last 2 months. Do you really want me to have that turned off because of one negative comment? And this is an actual situation. I'm actually giving you an example that's a real one that actually happened with me, and the client immediately said, no, we're not going to turn off that ad. We're going to leave that ad running. So when it comes to copywriting and creative, and the client seeing it from an outside perspective, sometimes they don't know which ad is performing in what way or what it's doing. And they just see a negative comment, or they just see an ad that is a certain way and they don't like it, or they think it's off brand. And they just emotionally react and say, hey, take this ad down right away. That is something that can happen. You just want to make sure you're talking to the media buyer first and saying, hey, I can totally accommodate your request. Always agree with the client. no problem. I could totally accommodate your request. Let me look into it right away. Go to the media buyer and say, this is what the client's requesting. However, is this something in your technical opinion is a good idea to do? If not, tell me why so I can go back to the client and let them know. Okay, that kind of language is important to use when you're translating. If the client makes a request to you, you need to go to the media buyer and let them know right away. But also, if it's turning off a campaign, changing the budget, or turning off ads and things like this, you need to ask the media buyer if it really is a good idea and how you can communicate with the client to, translate that for them. The media buyer is never allowed to talk to the client. You never let the media buyer talk to the client. Never put the media buyer on a meeting with the client on Zoom. It is not uncommon for the media buyer to record Loom videos for you, okay, to explain things to you in the ad account. All right. And you can look at those Loom videos and then you can talk to the client about it. Or you could record your own Loom video and just kind of maybe say the same things and show like the ad account and talk about it in an educated way. But it's important that you have the relationship with the client and you communicate with them, because media buyers are not client service people. They haven't been through the same training that I'm giving you here. They have a whole other set of technical skills that we use them for, and client services is not one of them. So it's very important that you never allow a media buyer to meet with or talk to a client. They're not allowed to. It's against policy, okay? So email support is another form of service that we provide in our scope of work. Email support is basically, clients are going to send emails into our support inbox, and then you have your own company email to correspond with them through that. But it's important that as a company, we work together to make sure that we respond to email in a timely manner, because one of the reasons why people hire us is because we'll be quick to communicate with them. We are good at communication, we're organized, and we can get with them right away. If we can't answer emails with clients in 24 hours or less, clients will get unhappy with us, with the type of agency that we run. So we have to respond to client emails within 24 hours or less. If you're not responding to client emails in 24 hours or less for clients that you are directly responsible for as a CSR, I will have to replace you with another CSR and you won't be able to work in the company. It is highly important that you can do that. Now, with that being said, we work Monday through Friday. It's not really expected that you work over the weekend. We do have some other team members kind of checking the general email and checking the general office line to try to let people know, hey, we'll get back to you on Monday. I don't expect you to be on it, 24 hours, 7 days a week, but Monday through Friday within 24 hours during the work week on a work day, 24 hours or less, you got to get back to the client. 24 hours or less, you got to get back to the client. Okay. It's really important now, because one of the things about the way we lay out our support for the clients and what we agree to in our scope of work is that we don't guarantee communication over the weekend necessarily. We guarantee communication through the work week, 5 days a week, business days, Monday through Friday. And you need to get back with that client if they email you within 24 hours. Even if you don't know the answer to something or you're trying to figure something out, we'll do a training on this and the same certification as well. You need to get back with them with a plan and say, okay, hey, thanks for the request. I'm going to put together a plan. I'm going to get back with you like tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon or something. The plan for this is for me to go ahead and get with the team. Always speak about the team in a general way. Don't say like the media buyer or like the graphic designer or the video editor. You have to be very general when you talk about our internal processes, which we'll talk more about as well, which is a professional point of communication. You want to be general with clients. You just want to tell them what the result will be. All they really care about is the result. And you say, hey, I understand what you're concerned about. I'm going to go ahead and get with the team so we can like look at a plan around this and get back to you tomorrow morning. Okay. Same thing with phone and text support. Regular phone and texting support is needed to ensure that the client needs are met on time. So make sure you're following the communications workflow for CSR, which you'll also be trained on. as far as using the phone line and text messages. Usually we're using text messaging and the virtual office phone to get faster results. Sometimes you actually have to call the client like on their cell phone or text them directly because they might not be good at checking their email. They might be very disorganized with their email. They might lose your emails a lot of times. So if something's in process and you just don't hear back from the client, it's actually your fault if things don't move forward. Even if the client is disorganized and even if the client is hard to work with, it's your job as a client success representative to move the process forward using email, using our virtual office phone, and using text messaging through that virtual office phone in the flow that I train you on. And if you do that, you will get results because you're gonna email them like every 3 days. You're gonna be calling them every 3 days, and you'll be texting them every 3 days. So every day you're using a different venue of communication to try to get in touch with them, to get things done and pushed forward. Because that's what it takes, because all of our clients are business people, so they're very busy. And so you have to keep track of these timelines and you have to push things forward. If you ever say to me that it's the client's fault because they're disorganized, or it's the client's fault because they won't get back to you, or I'm hearing that from you, what I actually hear is I'm not trying hard enough. That's what I hear, is that you're not trying hard enough, because really you have to try very hard with business people. You have to communicate more than normal, okay? And it's not harassment. You don't have to worry about bothering them too much or something. You're trying to move things forward. We always have deadlines as an agency. We're always trying to launch ads. We're always trying to move creative projects forward. We're trying to get results for the client. We're trying to communicate. We need to get reports finished. There's always a deadline. So if the client is hard to communicate or they're not responding, you have to pick up the level of communication and touch them more times. And you have to use the tools at your disposal to do that, which include like scheduling things in ClickUp, using your Google Calendar, and making sure you stay organized to stay on top of the client. So Zoom video support is another form of support that we offer, and it's not uncommon for you to need to get on a Zoom meeting, maybe for like 15 minutes with a client, 10, 15 minutes. They're usually going to book that in advance using the scheduling tool that we offer through the company. You'll have your own personal scheduling tool where you're going to block your availability through the week. As a CSR, once you're through this certification, you're going to be scheduled for like 15 to 20 hours minimum within the company to do client services. So I expect that you have like around 5 to 10 hours of time blocked through the week where my clients can book meetings with you, okay? And that's really important because, the clients you might be doing some other kind of work during that time for me or something, or, working on other client accounts or getting some things done. And then a client books a call in with you and you're available to go ahead and take their Zoom call. If a client books a Zoom call with you, you have to be able to show up for it. If you can't show up for it, another CSR has to take that meeting. Another CSR has to be able to come in. You got to communicate with your team members, because like if you get sick, if you have a family emergency and you have a client meeting scheduled, another CSR has to come in and take over that meeting. Okay, if you miss a client meeting, a client Zoom meeting, that will probably result in you not working for the company anymore. Okay, it's very important that Zoom meetings are upheld with clients. You cannot miss Zoom meetings with clients, okay? And we'll go over a whole training on Zoom where we're going to go over your demeanor on Zoom, how you conduct yourself, and like kind of generally as a company what I expect us to present ourselves on Zoom, because it's one of the highest touch points that you're going to do as a CSR with the client, being able to see them on video and talk to them in real time. So ensure you state the purpose of the meeting in advance. When you're booking the meetings, of what is the reason for the meeting. Make sure you're the one that's in control of the meeting and everything. Clients will book calls with a purpose needed for videos, such as like going over ad proofs or looking at tracking or technical details, where clients want to ask questions about the actual ad manager, or if they're like more involved with the media buying. Like sometimes clients like to work on their own ads, and we do work with people like that, or they're in their ad account looking at things. You can offer a review of the account, have the media buyer record a Loom overview answering any of the questions the client may have. Okay, because usually they're going to send you questions, and then you can review that Loom video that the media buyer sent, and then maybe get on a Zoom call with the client to go over it with them. And if they still feel like their questions aren't being answered or they need more information, just tell them you'll get back to them with more. Okay. It's better if you don't want to be in a situation as a CSR, since you're not a media buyer, where like the client gets on a Zoom call with you and they have their ad account up and they're sharing their screen, asking you questions about media buying in the ad account. Okay. You don't want that. You want to be able to handle those questions in a general way by pinging the media buyer, because you can't bring the media buyer on the call. And you cannot like play the Loom video that the media buyer made, right? So be very careful about that. If they say, oh, let me share my screen and go over it with you, you can say, sure, go ahead, share your screen. Let me go ahead and see what you're talking about, ask some questions. I'm recording this call because we record all of our Zoom calls. And then what I'd like to do is go back to the team with it and get you a really educated answer here, like this afternoon or tomorrow morning or sometime really soon. Just make sure you get back to them in like 24 hours or something. And usually they'll be like, okay, fine, that's fair. And you might even tell the client, hey, just record a Loom video, like use loom.com, record it and just send it over to me. We don't even have to schedule a Zoom call. So anytime you can get the client to record a Zoom, or record a Loom video, or you can record a Loom video where it's screen sharing, try to encourage that with clients, because then you can avoid scheduling a whole Zoom meeting, because that blocks out your time. It's much easier if they just send you a Loom video, because a lot of times the Loom video ends up being like 2 or 3 minutes long. It's a few questions. You can share it with the media buyer and they give you an answer like right away. And you just resolve the whole thing faster than the Zoom meeting would even happen. So media buyers are never allowed to be on a Zoom call with the client or any other team member that's not a designated client success rep or CSR. CSRs are the only people that have direct contact with our clients. Okay. So when there are items outside of our scope of work, you need to send, like, you still want to be helpful for the client, right? So what you want to do is be good about sending help articles or reference articles, especially for Meta, because a lot of times they have questions for us around using the Meta platform. And, our job is to run their ads on Meta and do advertising and media buying on Meta. So a lot of times they have questions for us about stuff on Facebook or Instagram, like platforms specific to Meta that we publish on for them. But it's regarding organic strategy, or maybe things we don't really work with. Like they might have a question about their closed Facebook group. Okay. And you learned about the troubleshooting flow in the teamwork training. You apply the same troubleshooting flow to questions about things outside of our scope, like Meta, where, they're saying, on Facebook, I've got this closed group and I can't like set up the 3 questions for it so that they have to answer so I can capture their email when they come in. Well, that's outside of our scope of work. Like we don't work on closed Facebook groups, and that question doesn't really have to do with the media buying. So what you want to do is say, hey, what would be really helpful is this article here that I found. And usually if you Google search, how to set up closed group Facebook questions, you're going to see pretty quickly that like the Meta articles are what usually come up first for Google. Google usually finds their help articles in Meta for questions around Instagram and Facebook and the other platforms, like right away. Same thing with other types of software and things that clients use. Your research for this shouldn't take more than 5 minutes. Like you're just Googling a help article and if it's outside of our scope of work, to still try to get the client to help them out, basically. So if they have another platform that let's say they build their website on like WordPress, and they are saying, oh, I'm not really sure, how I can run split testing. These ads are coming to the website, and I want to try to run half of the traffic to a page with this headline and half of the traffic to a page with a different headline to see how the performance is. Can you guys help me with that? Well, we don't design websites. Okay. We definitely don't work on WordPress sites. But hey, what I can do is, here's an article that talks about split testing WordPress websites. Just Google it. Just like look it up and say, hey, I found this article here. Sometimes a YouTube video pops up. If it's something a little bit more simple, that's a more technical example. Sometimes they're just looking for something. They're like, hey, I'm just looking to find the lead center in Meta so I can see the leads that are coming in from the lead form. Great, no problem. Here's a short video on it, and there's usually like a YouTube video, like here's how to find the lead center in Meta, and somebody navigates to it and clicks on it. So, be good about still trying to provide resources and doing a little bit of research to help people out when things are outside of our scope of work. And just letting them know, hey, this is outside of our general scope of work for you. But, I looked into it a little bit and here's a help article that might be helpful for you. Let me know if that works out okay. Right. You don't want to agree to do things that are outside of our scope of work. Never do that. Be very aware of our scope of work. And one of the things you can do too is check the client Google folder, our Google Drive folder for the client. And a lot of times we have their agreement, we have their letter of engagement saved in there as a PDF. And you can go ahead and review that. And you'll actually see we have the scope of work fully outlined there. And I'll go ahead and actually go over those items as they stand here in this training, just so you have a quick understanding of it. Okay, so here we have our letter of engagement as it stands currently. So, if this changes, then I'll have an update to the training or an addendum to the training, either in the form of a video or some sort of written update. But basically, our philosophy is to be very good at what we do, which is advertising on Facebook, and just focusing on that. We don't, as an agency, we don't focus on building funnels or websites, or we don't, do other things outside of our scope of work. So what we see in our letter of engagement is, the client's going to sign off on it. We do have service add-ons right now that we've started to do, which are user-generated content. So we will help create higher quality Facebook ads for our clients in the form of user-generated content, which is basically getting an actor or a creator to create better quality ads under our direction with our marketing strategy and scripting, so that we can edit them and create basically commercials for our clients. So we do have some levels of that here, and they're actually pretty straightforward projects with very measurable deliverables that we outline, where we say, you buy this from us, and then this is what we deliver for you through the process. So pretty straightforward. So if they do have a UGC project when we onboard them, you'll see here the option that we currently provide is 5 high-quality video ads by 2 creators, unlimited edits, which we do pretty much unlimited video editing for our clients through our creative service anyway. And then white glove proofing process, where we handle the whole process of working with the creators and everything to create those high quality user generated content ads. So our general terms of service has some legal jargon. You don't really have to worry too much about these, but right away you'll see it goes into the scope of services, scope of work basically, which includes setup and audit of their meta advertising assets. When we bring them on, we're going to make sure everything is set up properly, make sure we are ready to run ads properly for them, and that their business manager is set up and data tracking is set up properly through Meta. We're going to make sure there's authorization from them. Here, they're telling us here, as far as our scope of work, they're allowing us to moderate and publish content for them, so that we can, go in and turn ads on and off, publish ads, and that the client is basically granting us to do that as an act of good faith. They're working with us in good faith, right? We can publish for them on their assets. So creation of advertising strategies. So part of that scope of work is we're going to set up their consumer profile. We're going to build out some competitive research and set up those strategic documents. Then there's copywriting services. That includes writing compelling sales copy. Mostly we'd use ChatGPT and AI for that, with a series of systems for high quality copywriting and iteration of that copywriting. Our media buyers are also pretty good copywriters in many cases, and so they'll help with optimizing that copy. But for the most part, we actually have most of our copywriting processes automated to the point where we produce very good quality copywriting with automation. And so we don't really go into that with the client either. We don't tell them that we use ChatGPT. We don't tell them we use AI to create it, because we are actually looking at it as people. Those AI tools and those copywriting tools are just tools that we use to help us. We still create copywriting for our clients. Okay, we still proof it, we still organize it, and you still follow my copywriting trainings to put it together properly for them for the Meta platform. Okay, we use ChatGPT as a tool to help us with copywriting. So never go into that with clients. Never tell them that what softwares we use or that we use ChatGPT or anything like that, right? They don't really care how we perform our scope of work. What they care about is that we get the results that they want from our scope of work. Okay, so clients care more about results, like saying, hey, here's 5 really high quality headlines that we created with different psychological frameworks for expert copywriting strategies. They're going to say, oh, okay, that's a great result. Those are great results. They don't care how we got those 5 headlines. They just see, oh, you're using 5 high quality headlines with different expert copywriting strategy that have different psychological frameworks for us to test. Well, that's a great result, as an example. So management of campaign execution, KPI reporting, that's part of it. Making sure that we're doing reporting for them. Monthly business development meeting with a dedicated agent. Meetings can also be requested for strategy. Now, these meetings, it says video meetings will be held with Zoom. It has to be on the Zoom platform, and they're going to be recorded. So they're agreeing that we can record calls right away up front in the letter of engagement. So you don't really have to say that every time you get on a call with them. They've already agreed to it here. And basically, persistent meetings outside the normal scope of work may require estimated costs. Like if they want lots of strategy meetings, or I have to meet with them a lot to do consulting with them for some reason, if they're just really needy, then we might bill them for it. But mostly what we're promising here is that we will give them a monthly business development meeting for 15 minutes, essentially. And generally, it's like one meeting is like really what you want to do with the client once a month. And you're either going to try to get them to book it with you, or they're just going to book it with you because they see your email signature line and they can just click on it, right? We don't do standing meetings or like scheduled meetings. So we don't promise that because it's not really that productive. Now, if they say, hey, you guys never did this, or, it's been 3 months and we've never had a meeting, you just let them know, hey, well, you can schedule it with me anytime. It is up to them to schedule the meeting with you. It's good if you solicit it and let them know, but it is up to the client to book a meeting with you and then show up in that time frame. Okay, we don't promise that we're going to meet with them anytime, all the time, and we definitely don't do scheduled meetings. Where they're like, I want you to meet with me once a week, every week at this particular time. That's usually unproductive. That usually ends up with you getting on a meeting with them and there's really nothing to talk about a lot of times. So it's better to just provide them with your booking link and say, hey, when you feel it's necessary, go ahead and book a call with me. Customer service will be primarily provided through email, text message, Zoom video calls, and then like our office phone line. So we lay it out right here in our letter of engagement, our scope of work, that like primarily we provide email support, right? And that's why getting back to people within 24 hours is so important. Text message support is like, we'll text back and forth. If they text the office line, text them back if they have a question. We don't really guarantee that we'll provide fast communication turnaround on client chat platforms like paper mail or other forms of communication. The client understands that we provide thorough and responsive communication primarily by email to keep proper internal records of communication. And that is part of our record keeping flow, is email, is like having an email to reference. So if the client is trying to reach out to us in some other way, or they want us like in a Slack channel or something like that, we can join it, but we can't guarantee the same kind of turnaround as we can with just simple email communication, which is what we use, right? So creation of creative imagery, video editing, and other graphic design for advertising objectives. So UGC video animation and more project-intensive creative will be estimated for the client. Outside of that is a special project. But general graphic design and video editing is something we do for our clients on an ongoing basis. Ongoing creative testing, statistical analysis of results, and like iteration or optimization of ongoing strategy. So, doing the media buying on an ongoing basis. That's what the media buyers do in the background. And then, by agreeing to the service and paying the fees outlined, the client agrees to recurring frequency. So they're by agreeing to all this, they're agreeing, hey, we're going to go ahead and pay you to do these services, right? So, and for anything outside of this, it would require a special project invoicing. So it's not that we won't do special projects, because we do. They're mostly involved with content creation or creating better quality ads for them is pretty much like what we do for that. But it has to be approved by me, basically. It needs to be approved by me. So specific time for, and that doesn't mean ask me every time the client asks you. If it's outside of our scope of work, like they want us to build a website for them, we're not doing that. Like, we don't build websites, and you just let them know, hey, it's not something we do. Do you have any questions for me about your meta advertising, or like your meta traffic, basically. It's really important that we don't even entertain ideas of like really big projects outside of like what we normally do. If they want more UGC, like user generated content ads, they want animated ads, they want us to do more like creative projects for them. That's the kind of stuff that we like to estimate. That's the kind of stuff we charge them for and do, and it actually improves the advertising results because we're making better quality ads for them. So basically you're also going to get requests from me or from accounting on a regular basis, for some clients where they don't pay their invoice or like their payment method went bad, and you're going to get a link for their invoice to share with them. And it's your job as the CSR to follow up with them when they have overdue invoices. As we were outlining here in the agreement, they need to pay their fees on time. And if they don't pay their fees on time, eventually we'll just cancel their service, like usually after about like 10 days or so. Okay. There might be some special cases where we have long-term clients and maybe they take a little bit longer because of the nature of their business, but they do pay their bill. In those special cases, we'll notate the account and say, hey, for this client, sometimes we wait a little bit longer. Sometimes if they're like an agency client, if they're a white label client, we might give them more leeway as well. Because maybe they pay other bills and they're like caught up on some of their accounts, but then another account needs to be paid and they are just having like a accounting issue or something. But for the most part, if clients are like running late on their bill, we start telling them about it. Usually like we give them at least like 3 or 4 reminders to pay that bill. There's actually automated reminders going out from the invoicing system, but you as the CSR will reach out 3 to 4 times and say, hey, pay your bill, before we get to that like 10-day mark. And we get to that 10-day mark and like we pretty much have to start turning off their services, because we can't afford to have our back end, our media buyers working, you working on the account, the automation we run with software, all that stuff costs money to run the client accounts. And it can actually be expensive if they burn us, like if they don't pay us. So it really hurts profitability in our agency. Because we're actually a pretty competitively priced agency for what we do. So it's really important that like if they don't pay their bill and you're not hearing back from them, if you hear back from them on day 9 and they're like, oh, I actually sent the payment, it might just take a couple days, you don't want to cancel their service. You want to give them maybe an extra day or so to see if it comes through. But ask them to confirm it. Say like, hey, can you send me like a screenshot of the confirmation that it's paid? Can you give me some sort of confirmation there? Or check with accounting or check with me and say, hey, the client says it's paid. Is it actually paid? And we can go into the invoicing system and check and see if their credit card cleared. So we do try to work with clients on payments, but once we start getting up there as far as when their bill is due and things like that, it's really important that we stop their services at some point. So there's no guarantees provided in our engagement letter. There's no refunds. If people ask for a refund, we had already signed an agreement where there's no refunds. Okay. And then the no guarantees provided means like, hey, we never guarantee results. We never, in the sales process, when we sell clients, we do consultations, we're never like guaranteeing anything for them. The only thing we really guarantee is our process, is like exactly how we go about launching ads for people so they know what to expect and what they're getting for what they pay for. And that's usually what clients care about. But we never say, hey, we guarantee a 3 times ROAS, like all the time. We never make a guarantee like that. Or we guarantee we're going to get you 10 leads in 30 days guaranteed, or your money back, or something like that. We don't make crazy guarantees like that because it's unrealistic and clients know it's unrealistic. So we put it in our contract. And then, of course, they agree to pay their bill. That's the payment administration. We do have a non-disclosure with clients. Basically, the way that works is it's a mutual non-disclosure. So they're going to keep any information about our business operations that we tell them is confidential. They'll keep that private. And then, they're also going to let us know in some cases, hey, we have some confidential information or intellectual property that is considered intellectual property or IP, so please don't disclose it to anybody. Then it's our job to keep that stuff under wraps. It's our job to make sure we're not just sharing that stuff with anybody. Mostly the non-disclosure is applicable for our clients when it comes to their customer lists. You will be handling lists from customers, from clients of like all of their customers with big email lists a lot of times, things like that, where we're creating what's called a lookalike audience for them. And so we do have a non-disclosure with the client. So it's very important that you keep that data within our Google Drive and it does not go anywhere else. That's very, very sensitive data that's important to our clients. It's their customers, right? So that is immediately considered intellectual property and falls under our non-disclosure with the client. And that's the rest of this is just kind of legalese. I won't go into it. But that's as it stands right now, our letter of engagement, scope of work. So I just wanted to go over that. So you have a good overview of it. Thanks.